Grown woman is on TikTok.
Hi, welcome, Star Wars fans. We're here again, Duel of the Ranks. We're going to talk about Clone Wars Season 2, Episodes 4 through 8. Why? Because we're trying to find the best content ever made in Star Wars history. And today, when we break down this arc, we're going to see if this is a hit or a miss. By the end of this episode, we'll see how this arc with the Clone Wars stacks up amongst the rest. I, Brody, am joined by my co-hosts Amanda and Brian as we attempt to discover in this show what story is truly the best from all the rest. And with that, we're back.
So good to have Amanda back. She's the glue that keeps this show together.
Really?
I'm so
I mean, you saw what happened last week. None of I missed an opportunity to really dive into a couple of the episodes that we were supposed to. So I'm excited to revisit them and hear Amanda's opinions.
I am too. We're back. I got a new camera today. Can you tell? I'm really excited about it. If I put my hand right here in front of the camera, it focuses. I pull it away, it autofocuses. And you know, Amanda, you should appreciate that. When we filmed the DOTR 100 video, we had to do 8 takes or something, 42 takes, just because of focusing issues. Done. AI. What a
you
wonderful
had to buy a
world.
whole new camera just to do that?
Listen. No one has time for everything. This camera, it does some more stuff than that. It does some more stuff. And you know what? If you want to see our fantastic faces and cameras, you know what you should do? What should they do, Brian?
Check out the live stream on youtube.com.
It sounds like a 2002 call to action when you say .com at the end. www.youtube.com.
I'm a Melee player. Everything I know is from 2002.
Everything. Jeez.
Relatable.
There's this new social media platform I hear people talking about, and you're like, are you talking about Threads? No, I think it's called MySpace. All right, Amanda, what happened on this set of? We talked about it last week, actually. Everyone, this is part 2. If you don't know what happened, then go back, because Brian wrote a fantastic synopsis about the return to Geonosis.
I forgot to admit I didn't write it. I was going to say it, and then I just got right into this discussion.
You plagiarizer.
Thank you, Wikipedia, for
plagiarizer.
Yes,
take it back. What have you ever done yourself?
Not much.
Hey, he's writing a whole screenplay.
Yes.
Blop.
Bloop is funny. I'm gonna write that down.
It's just an extra 0 in there.
Bloop.
Just one more way they screw up his name.
Yeah.
It's a recurring theme.
One dwigged. Right. Amanda, what did you think of the episodes? Because you missed the one arc, and now we actually have to do Return to Geonosis, because Brian only watched the first episode last time, so we gotta do the whole thing.
Whoa, you missed out on a lot then.
Yeah, well, I watched ahead quite a bit a couple of weeks ago. I guess it was a week before last at this point. So I watched it. I just, was more focused on Senate Spy, and I didn't write all my thoughts out about the other 3.
It's so funny, because I was like, these were really good. And he's like, they were not. And I was like, he's like, they? What do you mean they, though? It's like,
no, actually, I've been gone since we started Clone Wars Season 2. So I even missed out on the first arc that we talked about, which was the Cad Bane stealing the holocron and getting the Jedi younglings, which was a fantastic way to immediately draw into from the end of Season 1 into Season 2. I did hear that this season of the Clone Wars is dubbed like the season of bounty hunters or something like that. And Cad Bane is just one of the biggest and baddest. So it is also, I loved that we got to see him be fallible though as well, because in the first interactions that we had with him, he's just totally the toughest, best villain and can't be defeated. But Anakin gets in his mind, or wait, no, Anakin and Obi-Wan both use their Jedi mind tricks together. Yes, that's right.
I don't know how ethical that is, by the way.
That's really, yeah. That's
Not
what I'm talking about. It's not very Jedi-esque, but this second season of Clone Wars is really giving a lot. Like, I feel like it's all it, there's not a bad episode that I've watched so far.
Right.
You don't think so?
I
You really hate Senate Spy, don't you?
I'm not a fan. I appreciate that they went out of their way to like make like a Pride and Prejudice style kind of story. And I do love Pride and Prejudice. I think there's a place for that. And I don't think you necessarily need lasers and explosions all the time. But I just think Senate Spy was also kind of derivative and uninteresting. It was kind of like, it was a lot like the other episode in season 1 that did a lot of the same things. And it just kind of felt stale, especially because it was so close in proximity to it.
Yeah.
I loved it. And I remember Clovis coming back later on. And at first I thought I had totally forgotten he was introduced this early in the Clone Wars as a franchise. So I was really shocked to see him so soon. And of course, I love any Padme and Anakin romance. Whenever things can go well for them, I'm always rooting for them. But knowing that Clovis does come back is really exciting. And I think knowing that too also helped me give it a higher rank on some of the things like the story and the characters, because it's putting them in situations that we would have never seen them in the movies. So I think it really helps us get to know them as characters more.
They do that a lot throughout this arc. It really goes some crazy places that they really aren't ever bold enough to go back to. So I guess I should appreciate that more about it.
So which of the two arcs did you like more? Did you like the Return to Geonosis, or were you more into what? Like what? The first one. What was the first arc called?
The Holocron Heist.
The Holocron Heist.
I don't know if that's the name of the arc, but yeah, that's the Jedi baby kidnapping arc.
Right. I think my favorite is the Return to Geonosis, and I'm not much of a Geonosian fan. Like, they are so creepy, and I just remember the brain worm things from my first watch through. So this is just such a very like iconic and memorable part of the story, and the fact that it goes on for so long. Like, it's a 5-episode arc, which I heard there's no other arcs that are this long in the rest of them. But you think you're kind of finished with one, and then they're like, just kidding, you have to like destroy this thing now, just kidding, you have like a brain worm in this guy, just kidding, like now there's another brain worm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ultimately, I mean, when I looked at the arcs, of all the arcs so far, Ryloth from the end of season 1 is, an 81.27, so that's solid. But this is the second best arc we've rated yet, the Return to Geonosis, at a 74.56. And the first arc, The Magic of the Holocron, that's a 70.58. So compared to the first two arcs of season 1, where we had Malevolence at 53.6 and R3S6 at 49.65, there is clearly a vast difference between season 2 and season 1 right out the gate.
Heck yeah. Like, I want to talk about the second episode in that. So you guys, I understand, talked about the Senate Spy episode. So now we're talking about Landing at Point Rain. Like, wow, what a way to start off that episode, with like the craziness of the war happening, and like they can barely even touch down on the ground, and no music happening. And I just loved that energy that it starts off with.
It's a very stark contrast to Senate Spy, and I love that about Landing at Point Rain. It's one of my favorite action episodes of the Clone Wars. I love anything with a big wall in it. Just gets an immediate 10 for me. And especially because it just goes straight from this like really slow paced kind of drama into straight just brutal gritty action, like a Vietnam War film. Like it really lets the rest of this arc it gives it some momentum. It takes off.
Well, it's funny because like on the Return to Geonosis arc, if you would have taken like the 3 best episodes, and if it wasn't so long, like a quarter of the season, then it would probably be rated our best arc. But things like Senate Spy bring it down, unfortunately, because there are some extra episodes that were lumped into it that, that ultimately, I mean, for me, it feels like I think I enjoy its highlights a lot more than the Ryloth series. For example, like with the worm episode where they infect the stormtroopers, I just love there's so much foreshadowing in that episode, and it could seem like a really base, like they even try to showcase the beginning, like, oh, this is some simple mission, let the Padawans handle it. What the Padawans are seeing on their end is the clone troopers turning on them and how they feel about that. There's some foreshadowing with that. There's foreshadowing with one of the Jedi Padawans. Will she stay good? Will she not? What will they do with their lives? And then Ahsoka questions at the end of the episode what's morally right or wrong based on, well, what did the Jedi say? She did what she wanted to do, but was that right? Was it not? You had Anakin, who is choking, not Unkar Plot, whatever his name, Pago the Lesser. He is force choking him, and you hear the Imperial March theme play and if you want to kind of at one point say, this is clearly a sign that he's going to the dark side, which it is. But on the other side, the previous episode, we see him, Obi-Wan, and Mace Windu. Like, it wasn't him. There was another, we were talking about earlier. There's another guy he's interrogating, and they're searching his mind. Oh, yeah, Cad Bane. Searching his mind. Like, super invasive. So Anakin's seeing, like, oh, yeah, we're Jedi. We get what we want by force if we have to.
We're the good guys, so it's okay.
Yeah, and so, like, the picture that's being painted right now is you're seeing, okay, it makes sense why, when push comes to shove, this is why Anakin's going to do what he's going to do. And so I love that episode for all those reasons.
Yeah, I think this whole arc does a really great job at building in that backstory for Anakin that makes his turn to the dark side make so much more sense. And that's why when I go back and watch episodes 2 and 3, I look at them so much more fondly since I've seen the Clone Wars, because it kind of makes you understand that Anakin is coming from a place where ultimately he just wants to save everybody. So in his mind, he sees himself as doing like an ultimately good thing to get a good result. And I'm so glad you brought up like Ahsoka wrestling with right versus wrong, like morally versus like as it is to a war is different,
Mm-hmm.
and they're still kids. And I also love that we get to see the drastic differences between Anakin and Luminara as upholding very different ways of raising a Padawan.
Yeah, very different ways of coping with death and loss. And that was the biggest theme to me, because that's a major theme throughout philosophy that me and Brody talked about last week. I don't want to bore the audience too much with that philosophy stuff again, but it's fairly integral to Anakin's journey into, to the commentary of the Jedi Order and Stoicism that, suppressing your emotions isn't really super healthy. Like, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to like you can let that, passion in to guide your actions, as long as you're still being righteous and acting with, other people's with other people in mind.
Yeah. It's interesting to see, like, I mean, right now, that the show is starting to get to its true form, where it is where it's at its best, and you're seeing not only here's how Anakin gets to be how he is, but clearly, like, here's all the fallacies of the current Jedi Order, and the philosophies they believe in isn't so much rooted in what was the true faith of the Jedi, but more so this dogmatic political religion that they've all bought into, and more of a, I don't know. I mean, they're bought into, I guess. I mean, what would they call it? It's kind of like more like anyway, I won't go too religious with us right now, but they're really into this institution over what it really means to be a Jedi. That's all I'm gonna say.
The institution that's controlled primarily by the Senate, which is kind of another major important thing, is like, yeah, the Jedi are like
red flags everywhere.
They're not bad people, but like they don't realize how far they've slipped and how, little control they actually have.
Yeah. Oh, and it's so interesting. Like, when you watch the Clone Wars, do you find when you go into Revenge of the Sith that it's like you're watching a completely different movie than you had seen previous to watching the Clone Wars?
Yeah. I find that same for the Clone Wars or Attack of the Clones as well,
Mm, yeah. Well, there's scenes like I'm curious on what scenes impact it for you. I know for me, something I didn't even think about as when I was a kid is, hey, Palpatine's bad, so we got to go get him and we're going to arrest him. Well, sure, they do that in the movie, and as a kid, you're like, yeah, he's the bad guy. You get older and you're like, it doesn't really matter if he's the bad guy though, until you have like proof, hard proof that this guy
Mhm.
is going on both sides of the war. You're kind of just vigilantes making the decision, well, we're going to arrest him. Why? Well, he's practicing this faith that we don't believe in. Like, you can't do that. He's doing his job. You have to have evidence that all these other, because you tell another like senator he's a Sith, they're like, so
It's religious discrimination.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. They're like, he's doing his job. What's your problem? Like, you have to have hard proof that he's actually orchestrated a war on both sides. Not, oh, he felt it. Now we know it.
Yeah.
Let's go get him.
I
And
think
like,
he's a Sith Lord. That's literally Anakin's word. I think Chancellor is the Sith Lord. You think, Anakin? Okay, I guess we'll just go slay him.
Yeah.
you
Go
can
arrest
tell.
him right now.
Yeah, and that's where Anakin, like, and KG put in the comments, like, he must stand trial. That's so true. Like,
Mhm.
like you don't think about it as a kid, but you're like, dude, it's very like I understand from the Jedi perspective, like, no, we just got to take him out, which it makes sense. But as this political authority, they had no right to step in that capacity and take out the Chancellor of the Galactic Republic. My gosh, and
Yeah. Can you imagine what would have happened? Like if they had killed him, like I don't think the Jedi, or I don't think the Republic would have been super down with the Jedi. In fact, it was all part of Palpatine's plan to frame them for, being power hungry and for for trying to commit a coup. So I think it would have played out either way. Even if they had killed him, I think the Jedi would have kind of been screwed.
yeah. But like the Jedi, there was no foresight on their end. There wasn't like, okay, he's playing this political game. We're gonna pull our cards back, and here's what we need to do because if we go after him, we're all gonna have to live in hiding, this and that. It's like they didn't do any of that. They're like, all right, I got this purple lightsaber. I'm gonna murder him.
Well, and that comes into play too in this arc where we have them taking down this extra droid army factory, right? And instead of being able to like be ahead of the gun and like actually stopping it before it becomes an issue, like they're just doing like the damage control, like they're using the Jedi like the cleanup crew, which is also not effective.
Yeah. I don't know. What are the Jedi actually effective at? They just seem like there's L's across the board. And when I was
Pretty
a
good with
kid,
lightsabers.
yeah, I don't know. When I was a kid, I was just like, man, these guys, they are like the coolest. They're the best. They get older, and I'm like, Kit Fisto, my guy, who I thought was amazing. You got taken down in like 4 seconds to Palpatine. And those moves were not outside of that first move. Look, they were entirely in their own right to be thrown when that old man jumps from out of the table and does that spin in the air. The first guy, all right, you got caught sleeping. You were lost. Everybody else,
Plo Koon.
yeah.
Rest in peace, Plo Koon. He was no, that wasn't Plo Koon. What am I thinking?
No,
That was
Plo Koon.
Coyote Mundi,
Oh,
who was also in these episodes, which I do want to bring back up.
no, Coyote
Circling
Mundi
back.
got taken down by his.
On my
Oh
Geo.
yeah, by his.
Come on!
Oh
Trying
yeah.
to attack on the Wookiees. This one took him out. Which he had it coming. Coyote Mundi is a terrible, terrible person.
They're all pretty terrible.
Yeah.
He especially.
I
Coyote
do
Mundi-
love, I think Coyote Mundi, I saw a video about him recently explaining why he's just the worst Jedi. And like I get it's funny that they picked the guy with the really big head. It's a commentary about how logic isn't everything. You also need a heart.
You know what's funny? And it's so true because I don't care what you say, Brian. Coyote Mundi has committed multiple war crimes. The fact that he's like, get the flamethrowers, and he had all of those Geonosians burned alive. No, Coyote Mundi is not a good person.
Yeah, I agree. It's Geonosians are technically sentient beings,
technically.
Discussing. Yeah, I mean, as much
But
as
if
they're
they're
icky.
zombified, are they?
There's
Oh, that's
zombified.
a
You can
good
flamethrow them. You can
point.
flamethrow them if they're zombified. They're not
Yeah.
Okay.
alive.
Go
Yeah,
ham. Yeah.
I think that makes sense. I do want to bring up that when I first saw the arc that includes the like brain worm, I thought that those were going to somehow be tied into Order 66. Like I don't
Oh.
know if like I still didn't know about the inhibitor chip or like how
Mhm.
they explained Order 66 off. So I was like, oh my gosh, what if this is like the first seed that they're planting on this
Mm.
type of technology is going to be harnessed and some or another, but
Nope.
it didn't work out that way.
Interesting.
Which
I
I'm
mean, it definitely
glad.
is foreshadowing for it. And I think
It does,
it's
yeah.
good to prove, it's good to show this early on that the clones wouldn't attack the Jedi in their right minds. You know, these, they're brothers, they're homies with the Jedi.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's sad to see them have to get slaughtered, but you got to do what you got to do.
The commander, was it Barriss that stabbed him, or was it Ahsoka? I
Ahsoka?
think it's. I thought it was Barriss. I don't
No,
know,
I think it is Barriss, yeah.
because I just have a tough time thinking through. Like Ahsoka really went out of her way to not kill anybody, and there was
Mhm.
plenty of moments she had the opportunity to, and Barriss like instinctively like, here's my opportunity, boom, stab, just like. I'm pretty sure. Whereas Ahsoka, like, she had a chance to slice Barriss multiple times, and she like ran away. So, which
Yeah,
is
that happened in the last episode where they're like they find out that the worm is like doesn't like to be cold and
Mhm.
her and Barriss are fighting in that like
Yeah.
enclosed room, which was really intense. I was like, "Oh my gosh, we're watching two children fighting each other to the death and one of them's like, kill me."
Kill me. Oh
I
my
was like, "Oh
gosh.
my god."
Yeah. Yeah, that was
It's
pretty
that
dark.
dark. Yeah, the both of those episodes were just so different from any other Clone Wars episode. I don't think they ever really get as horror-y, as classic cinema-y as they do in these. And it
And then
was when I saw it. Yeah, sorry.
And then Ahsoka has to be like, well, I didn't want to kill Barriss because obviously I don't, but was that selfish of me? Because then I could have let this whole thing get out and infect the world. So,
Mhm.
man, it's a great way of showing this duality of approaching all of these situations. Like Barriss is not any worse of a Padawan than Ahsoka is, and Luminara
Not
and
yet.
Anakin both have their same like weaknesses in different areas.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's definitely foreshadowing for Ahsoka, the show, and you see
Mhm.
how quickly Ahsoka forgives Sabine for choosing her friend over, this bigger threat to the galaxy. And I mean, I guess they haven't really found a way to keep it under control yet, but like, yeah, I think Ahsoka really understands that very early on that, without our connection to each other, we're nothing.
Mm. Yeah. So overall, it looks like most people online put the Geonosis arc in their top 10. Most people put it at number 9. For us, we did give it a 74%. So
That's
hopefully,
it?
as a whole, yeah.
For
I
all
mean,
5? Oh my goodness.
I
I
think
thought
that's
it was
pretty
gonna
good.
I
well,
thought it
let's
was
look at
gonna
it
get
like this.
higher.
Season episode 4, and most of it is because Brian and hates Senate Spy. That's I think most people don't put a number to that one and they forget about it. We
Okay,
do
do you just not like it because it was like romance heavy
No, I'm a
or
huge
Clovis?
romantic. Anyone that knows me knows I love that kind of stuff. I just thought it was boring and contrived. And
Mm,
just
Yeah, it is kind of a throwaway episode in the grand
yeah.
scheme of things.
And I don't hate it. Like I liked a lot of stuff about it, especially like the fashion and things like that a lot of people don't appreciate enough about the Clone Wars. But I think maybe my approach to scoring is that like 2.5 is like passable. So like
Mm,
if it's way below that, then yeah, it sucks. But like if it's around there, then I really think it's like it's okay. It's
yeah.
not great. It doesn't stand out. Doesn't really do anything to push the series. At least like maybe just relative to the incredible stuff that's going to happen later. Because
Yeah.
the rest of the season is just banger after banger.
yeah. Um I am. I'm just based on this conversation, I am moving some of my numbers around. Not at all on episode 4, not Senate Spy, but that one, that I feel very confident. I gave that one a 68% overall, and I'm sticking to it. Which
Are you
is
able to also tell us and the listeners what the first arc scored now that my scores are in?
yes, I mentioned that a second ago at the
Oh,
beginning, but let me affect a couple of these because yeah, when I think through Brain Invaders, it is a B level story. Like it is fun, and there's so much we can break down. Amanda, you gave the characters on the Brain Invaders episode a 4.5. That's pretty
yeah.
solid.
I loved that. I also love that there was that scene with Barris and Ahsoka in the like cafeteria, kind of like
Mm,
talking about their perspectives and stuff like that. That is what I'm talking about. We're
Yeah.
seeing growth, we're seeing them trying to understand the world and their role in it. And that's just, yeah, that's great writing, especially to be able to throw it into a kids show and make it make sense and be invested in it. That's what I
Mhm.
love to see.
Yeah,
yeah.
making that accessible to kids. I think if a philosophy or if an idea is good, if it's true, then it should be easy to explain it to a to a third grader.
Mhm.
And I
Mm.
think Clone Wars does that actually really effectively.
What is so? It looks like we all really enjoyed. What was it? The Legacy of Terror was a big one for us that we all liked. I'm trying to see which one was overall our best from this arc. Senate Spy, not so much. Landing at Point Rain did get some love. I think no, the best one was the Legacy of Terror though. So what about that one was so appealing for y'all?
I think just because it's so unique, like visually, it's like so dark and creepy and just takes such a turn from where you think that arc is going.
It's
Mm,
very memorable. Yeah, we get this whole like queen of the Geonosians, which is also really terrifying and interesting how she like what her powers entail. Like she could take
yeah.
over the universe
Yeah.
Did y'all
if
have like alien flashbacks as I'm sure they intended?
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, I love Alien. Yeah.
Oh yeah, big Alien fan here.
Really?
Um oh yeah.
Have you seen all of them? Like Prometheus,
Not
all of
all of
them?
them, but I
I,
have seen Prometheus, love Prometheus, which some people are just always shocked about, but
it's all
Yeah.
right. I just think yeah, the first two are just so incredible, and I don't think they're ever really able to. They might be some of my favorite, maybe my favorite sci-fi movies from that decade.
they
And
age
there's
perfectly too.
I don't know, just the visuals, but mostly just the visuals. I think just the style of it is just the filmmaking is incredible. The tone is just so distinct and distraughtful, and it's such a very simple commentary, but it's effective because of the mechanics of the film.
Yeah. Well, it looks like, yeah. So overall, we do have, I mean, I said it was 74, so I'm going to go with the 75.57% for Return to Geonosis, 70.58% for Magic of the Holocron. The Ryloth arc, we have pretty high at 81.27%. So if those are most people's top 10s and we have a 75 and 80, that's kind of concerning for the rest of the show. But we'll get through it. I have a tough time with like these arc, like we have like like that's a C score, and I'm sure a lot of people would say like, how could you give that a C? Well, I have a tough time putting that content over like many other pieces of content that are a B in my mind, and the stories
Yeah,
are.
we rarely ever give an A. So
It
Yeah,
kind
should
of
be rare.
yeah, yes. It
yeah,
when it scales down, it's yes, it's still great. I think this is a fantastic start to season 2 and I'm really excited to get going into the next stuff.
Me
yeah.
too.
I feel like it's gonna take a dip though. Like it's
Uh,
just gonna.
Now, even the one-off episodes that are coming up, I'm realizing like, man, there's actually some great character stuff going on, and a lot of this stuff it becomes a permanent mainstay, or at least is referenced to for a while. So season 2 really does kind of pave a lot of ground, especially with Mandalore in particular. That's the thing I'm most excited about. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'll just go back and just watch every Mandalore episode of the Clone Wars.
Well, it looks like arc 3 that we have coming up next is Salukami.
So look am I. Say it in Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, what is this? It's about
Is fun.
Grievous. Oh, okay. And it's like it's only 2 episodes. So that's the Grievous one. That's right. Okay, yeah. I'm excited about that. That's gonna be a lot of fun. Well,
more horror stuff, yeah.
Ooh, fun stuff.
Cool.
Should we go into the hot take segment of the show?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Don't be too proud of this podcast you've constructed. The ability to rank content is insignificant next to the power of an exceptional hot take.
It's hot takes time. Brian, you've always got a hot take. Why don't you start us off?
Always have a hot take.
Not Star Wars related.
Oh, any hot take?
Well, I mean, it would be good if it concerned Star Wars, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if anyone can interrupt me while I ramp up to my hot take, then I will just keep rambling for a little bit. Amanda's got one. Great.
I've got one.
I'll get one.
It's like talking.
Okay.
Talking,
yeah, no, I've got one. It's kind of a Star Wars hot take, but it's introducing like an outside IP into this hot take. But recently, my husband and I watched the series on Max called Scavenger's Reign, and it is this animated sci-fi show. I would classify it in the realm of Star Wars, but also like mature adventure time. And the premise is a cargo freighter full of like cryogenically frozen people on its way to colonize another planet gets damaged, and several escape pods scatter and land in different spots on this foreign planet. And the immersive universe of that show is unlike anything I've ever seen. And my hot take is that Scavenger's Reign is the best sci-fi since Star Wars.
Wow. I haven't seen it. Best sci-fi since that includes The Matrix.
Yeah, I'm going to double down on it and say, yes, it's even better than The Matrix, because I think that we don't get enough animated sci-fi shows or like serious sci-fi adaptations that are done in an animated style. I don't know why that is, but it just makes sense that it would excel in that medium because you have so much more creativity. And the show that I'm referring to, Scavenger's Reign, is like the most ultimate creative world that I've ever seen, like brought to life. I was trying to think of how anyone could even describe what I'm seeing and writing it down on paper and trying to revisualize it in my head. And I was like, this is just on another level. So I think as far as like Star Wars goes, I sleep and I want to go see 7 more seasons of where this is going. So I think Star Wars is going to have to step it up.
If you mentioned Adventure Time, if it's anything like that, I think I'll love it.
Yes, I actually did think of you because I know you love Adventure Time. And it has like this weird like ecosystem of like weird alien creatures that are also kind of cute, but also kind of deadly, you know? I don't know, very unexpected and beautifully imaginative.
Right.
I mean,
it's hard for you guys to say if that's a hot take or not, since you haven't seen it.
I mean, I haven't seen it.
Sounds like a hot take.
I do want to see it because I guarantee it's going to be decent. What constitutes as science fiction, though? Because, I mean, I guess like Star Wars is science fiction. It just always feels to me more like it's just a space drama than it is more like an action flick than it is a true sci-fi.
I've always been very adamant about that, actually, about Star Wars is not sci-fi, it's a fantasy. There's a lot of sci-fi elements in it, but there's an interview with Irvin Kershner about episode 5. He's like, it's not science fiction, it's a fairy tale. Like it's closer to like classic, just swashbuckling, Peter Pan kind of stories than it is to Star Trek. But I get it. There's lasers in space, and there is sci-fi sciencey words, and there's
midichlorians.
Yeah,
Science.
that's one thing that made it more like sci-fi, and that's why a lot of people hated it.
Yeah.
So but
Yeah. Well, I will say I'm pretty confident that I would disagree. But are you saying all content or are you saying shows? Because you did say all content, and that is where I'm probably going to draw a line with you, because we do have things that have occurred since then. We did, I know I don't really love this, but I know a lot of folks like Christian, our former host, love Blade Runner. Terminator 2 came out afterwards. I know some people liked, we did bring up The Matrix, obviously. I would thoroughly disagree with you just because Jurassic Park exists. I know some people ET is fine.
I can't wait for you to see it so you can like understand like on how much of a different level this is.
We're like you're saying this is better than Back to the Future, which is like
I love Back to the Future. Yes. I'm saying this is like
better than WALL-E.
Yeah.
Better than Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
Absolutely.
All right. I already know I'm probably going to disagree because I just saw Godzilla -1. And there's so much I can say with that in the world of sci-fi. That
this was better than Godzilla -1, and I've seen Godzilla -1 as well.
I'm not going to give you milk toast. I'm not going to give you nothing because I need to see this now, because Godzilla -1 was one of the best things I've ever seen. So we're gonna put a pin on it. And you said it's on HBO Max, right?
Yes.
All right. We're gonna come back to this. We're gonna binge it. Brian and I are just gonna. I'm gonna skip. I'm supposed to grade tonight papers. I'm gonna skip that. I'm just gonna review. Brian and I, we're just gonna have a slumber party and watch this show on HBO Max
all night.
All night.
We can review it next week.
Yeah, no, tomorrow. Gotta press the soundbite button. I'm just gonna come back on a StreamYard. No one's gonna be here, and I'm just gonna bloop. You fool! All right. Well, I've got one while Brian is still thinking.
I got one.
Oh,
it doesn't take long. That's
doesn't take long for me to think. I am Brian. I have the brain power of 4 Chiari Mundi brains.
No, it's because my mind is so empty. I just let the universe speak through me.
Oh, that's good. What's your hot take?
I think, horror has always been important to Star Wars. The monsters and everything, they've been included in every episode. I do think that like this arc does horror better than any other arc or anything else in Star Wars so far. But I still think that I find the Geonosian Queen pretty cheesy. And even when I was a little kid seeing this for the first time, I kind of thought the whole thing was a little cheesy. Maybe that's because I had too high expectations of, this isn't Star Wars. My Star Wars is lasers and explosions. I've come around to liking this a lot more and appreciating it. But I think the Dianaga is still by far the scariest creature in Star Wars.
I thought the take was going to be that the queen was cheesy, and now that you're going Dianaga.
No, that's a pretty agreeable take, I think. But the Dianaga is just like less is more. That principle, they just knocked it out of the park in the first Star Wars movie they made. They're just never able to top the Dianaga.
The creepiest thing. You're saying that Dianaga
I've argued the creepiest thing in Star Wars several times before.
And what do you think?
I've never mentioned. I think it's the big ass spider things.
The Acklay from Attack the Clones? Yeah.
I would totally say that the Dianaga is much scarier to me. Why is a Dianaga just chilling on the Death Star though? Does it eat trash?
Yeah, I mean, someone must have snuck it on board, or something laid an egg. It must have come in as an embryo. You can't just sneak an entire tentacle monster and just hide it in the garbage can. So I'm guessing it started as like some little squid, and then it just grew and grew. More garbage it ate.
Dianaga trash monster. Yeah, I don't know. I would say the Dianaga is pretty scary. Outside of that, I'd probably put up there that thing from The Mandalorian season 3. That cyberpunk, or not, a steampunk looking.
Oh,
Oh,
cybernetic.
Yeah.
cybernetic thing that was up there. That made me think of Doctor Who with that thing up like a Dalek operating a machinery. I'd probably still say, I mean, both of those are up there for me though. It was really creepy. So I can agree with that take. Anything in water is always scarier to me too, because now there's a whole area where you just don't know where it's coming from.
right.
Unpredictability is a thing. So I'll agree.
I'll agree with that too.
All right, we got a soundbite today. If I can find it, there it is. Roger. Okay, I've got one. So here in the States, we've brought up multiple times the former like writer's strike and how much writers should be paid for their work, how much content is too much content. Bob Iger has gone on to say that he's pulling the reins back. The problem was there was too much Star Wars content. The distribution strategy was just overkill, and that's not what helps things be successful. I think he's just wrong, and I think that's a very easy excuse to say your stuff sucked and it was trash. It wasn't. You're saying it was the audience. The audience got tired of it. Guarantee you, the audience wouldn't have thought that if it was halfway decent stuff you put out time and time and time again. People liked Andor. People wanted more of Andor, but you only did it once. So my hot take here is that it wasn't the audience. It was totally Disney. But I'll take it a step further. As I've mentioned before, Disney is really concerned about, I think, ESG scores with asset managers like BlackRock, and they're going out of their way to put out content that's really highlighting diversity, equity, and inclusion, which, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. You want to put out stuff and diversify people, like help all people from all audience identify with characters, awesome, good for you. But when that takes precedence over the core of what is film, what is television, well, it's a story. Can you tell a good story? And when you're trying to fit what it seems like a story within a box to do what, as they've said in a press release, doing what's morally right, well, now things are you trying to preach to an audience? Are you trying to sell tickets to something, or are you trying to tell a good story? And when I saw a movie called Godzilla -1 this last week, let me tell you, this show had nothing to do with left, right, politics, this or that. There was the state of Japan after World War II was in disarray. They're trying to pick up the pieces, and there's a lot where they just understand as a country they didn't value life. And then as they start changing their ways as a whole society, Godzilla comes in and just smacks the crap out of them. And they've got to deal with that and come together to fight this monster, or they'll all die. And so it was a really amazing story about survivorship, family, love, especially loss. Lots of things that doesn't really matter politically what you think. A lot of people can jump on board with. Another film that did that pretty well this last year was Top Gun. And overall, audiences that see those kinds of films, the critic scores are typically pretty high. The reviews from audiences worldwide are typically pretty high. And I think that's something we have to get back to with storytelling is, what are you trying to say and what is the overall story? Are you doing that? And are you trying to tell something that's meaningful? Or instead, are you just trying to say, okay, we checked this box and this box and this box? And again, I'm not saying it's right wing or left wing. People thought Tim Tebow on the right side was really annoying because, again, message over fundamentally, are you good at football and should you be practicing over preaching right now? Because you're pretty inaccurate with your throws. That's what I'm getting at. Get back to the basics. Give us a good story, and don't say it's the audience's fault that you oversaturated it and they just got tired of it, because realistically, your stuff's trash.
You lost me at ESP scores or something. No,
SP scores.
Yeah. No, I think if every show was as good as Andor, I would definitely not be complaining.
Yep.
And Andor did get pushed back. It was supposed to come out next year, but I don't know if y'all heard that news that next year we're only getting Mandalorian season 4 is filming this next year. So it seems like we are taking a little bit of a hiatus and a little bit of a step back. And I think overall that'll be healthy for the fandom to just chill out a bit. And then we'll be more grateful for the good stuff that we do get. Once we get Andor season 2, then it'll be all the sweeter because we waited.
Yeah.
I disagree that Godzilla -1 wasn't political. because there's definitely a part where the people were like, man, F the government, they won't do anything, so us people are going to have to do it ourselves. And
But that
that
is
to
historically what
me,
happened. That did happen.
yeah, and that to me is pretty politically motivated. But I agree with your soapbox, but I don't think it's a hot take. I think it's just like, yeah, that's the truth. That's it. Like,
The Disney's woke films are what's brought, and sorry, more so it's TV shows, are why they're in the state they are in today.
I think it goes deeper than that. I think it's evolved from the medium that is streaming, and streaming services has made these old-timey, like, film producer bigwigs that have been used to running a show a certain way for decades have had to change their entire philosophy and structure for that medium, and still want to save their bottom line and still make as much money and give themselves as much bonuses as they want to, that they keep thinking they can continue doing that and getting away with like mediocre work, that it's just not going to cut it. And especially as they continue to raise prices for these streaming services and continuing to find ways to add ads to them, people like have gotten really sick of it. They're like, you know what, I'm just gonna torrent this because you guys don't even make it worth, like, now people can buy stuff online, a digital copy, but then it's just like removed and you don't actually own it. So I think it's kind of a crumbling infrastructure, and I think it has more than just the DEI-ness of it. I think they try to maybe use the DEI like narrative to like throw on top to be like, look, see this thing that everyone likes to talk about and have an opinion on. Ooh, like you guys talk about that. And that's just sort of like a distraction from like, oh, actually we've seen record profits and we still like can't feed
Here's
anybody.
a great example. Here's a great example of this, right? So let's go back to the Obi-Wan show, right? First female composer in Star Wars history. They're really keen on announcing that. That was one of the big things for them, which, hey, that's great. Many of us can't really think of anything, any score, any
that seems
song.
so arbitrary.
But then at the same time, the big thing they remember is this Obi-Wan score that was put together by John Williams. And I personally can't remember that either. And then there's other things where like, we're really going to elevate this and we're going to make this about this and we're going to do this. And I'm like, let's just, can you make some, I don't care. Can we make good songs? Can we put together some good shows? Can we put together, like, I don't care about, my gosh, it takes so hot. My voice is just going away. Look, ultimately, like highlighting voices is great. And it doesn't really, at the end of the day, all that matters is this resonating with an audience? Are you connecting with your audience? And most of these shows just are not. And it's like when I watch any sort of like sports team, Russell Wilson on the Broncos is a great example. He goes out and before his games, there was last season, he talked about how he was doing all these high knees on the plane to get ready for the big game, right? He was really excited to do all the high knees on the plane as other people are trying to sleep. And they're like, dude, you cornball, go to bed. And he's like, no, I got to do my high knees. They go out, they get blown out the next day. Now, if they win that game and it's a good game, people are saying, they'll make a joke about it, like, oh, Russell and his high knees, watch out. If you lose, the more you put yourself out there and talk about these other things that are kind of arbitrary to the actual story that we're putting together, then people poke at it. Look, I don't think the majority of audiences didn't see The Little Mermaid because she was a black character. I think the majority of audiences didn't see it because they're like, another remake? They're like, as you said, like, oh yeah, but look, we did this thing. Like, I'm like, you know what? Maybe, and that's where the conversation comes in. Maybe you should have spent time thinking about what you're doing instead of just how does it appear, right? That's
right. Like, it's not like the composer's fault. What was her name? Natalie something?
Like, right. It's not about, like, that doesn't matter. Like I said,
like, Disney will then push and be like, look, we have the first person that is this and this. And it's like, just let me like do my job, and then you guys like will appreciate it for what it is, you know?
Mhm.
And then I think it's the corporation trying to uplift and be like, look how progressive we are, look
Yeah,
how X,
virtue
Y, or
signaling.
Z we are. And the people that are just trying to act or write or compose are just like, can I just do my job and
Can I
not
feed
have
my
to have
family?
this pressure on me? So
Well, I
I
mean,
feel
and
like we
that's
solved racism.
we
Let's
solved it.
go.
We
solved
did
it.
it, guys.
We white people.
But
Yeah.
like
It's
an example of
um,
this, we see it like with the Oscars right now. People are saying, I don't know how true this is. So I'm just saying it. I have to actually do my research. Godzilla Minus One, people were talking about it being film, best film of the year, which I haven't seen Barbie or I haven't seen Oppenheimer. So I can't really say on either
And
of
you
those
haven't seen
two.
the Renaissance World Tour film, so
Yeah, haven't seen that one's not on my list right now. We got to get through your HBO show first because that was some heat. But yeah, they're saying like again, they being people online don't know the accuracy here, but Godzilla Minus One would not win that award for best film because it didn't check all the DEI boxes of representation for
it's a
whatever.
foreign film.
That's what I'm saying, and I'm like, if that's the case, and you're depicting post World War II Japan and you're upset that there wasn't, a gay character in it or this or that. I'm like, then you missed the point in the movie. And that's what I'm getting at with some of these things. I'm like, what's the point of what we're making? And it gets, too easily sidetracked. If you have a gay character in there and it feels very natural, I bet you most people aren't really like complaining about that. Most people are like, yeah, that fit within the story. But you're like, hey, like, like we just watched Monarch and there's a character in the show. She walks up, she holds her girlfriend's hands, and then she kisses her. And then they are standing in front of a gay coffee bar. And as they walk away, there's a big pride flag. And I'm like, Apple, we get it. You're trying to check a lot of boxes. Like, well, just in case you missed that kiss, like they're gay. Hey, girl, they're gay. Like, we're just telling you, we
super
know.
gay.
They're gonna walk into a sex shop next, and then you're gonna really get it.
And then like, Apple, this episode sucks. Why don't you focus on that's what I'm saying. Why don't you focus on what's important here? Because right now, like, yes, you checked a bunch of boxes, but this was the worst episode of the season thus far. Why didn't you focus on your story? So that's it. When you're winning football games, you get to go out and talk about your high knees on the plane. When your shows suck, don't go out and say, but we checked the DE&I box. It's like, your show sucked. You talk about that once you put out some good shows.
Yeah.
Disney.
Yes.
Yeah, you can say something bold like in Andor. That takes a very clear stance against fascism. Like you can absolutely involve some modern relevant political themes without. I mean, I think it's worse when your show lacks conviction, when it's towing the line between not wanting to offend anyone. That's when the quality really suffers, and that's why a lot of like Mandalorian season 3 just had no conviction behind it. It was just stuff. It was just content. But Andor had a point to it, and we're gonna get more of that. And I think they know that at this point. So I think I'm really excited for like the Acolyte. Seems like it's gonna not just check boxes, but be crazy, off the wall, different, fun, exciting, paving a new way.
Yeah, it really opens the world for writers to like actually explore something totally new and different. Like, and that was why like a lot of those first projects that got greenlit, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, like, who else can we make a movie about? Han Solo, okay, who else? Lando, okay. Like, where else down the list can we like just take on a new piece of content? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. And
Lando's being directed or led by Donald Glover and his brother, I think too, is involved. Like he's a very bold. If you saw Atlanta, like that show's got loaded with commentary. There's absolutely a way to do it.
I would love to see him. I am more pro Donald Glover in the hands of Star Wars than Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a hot take. I don't know.
Ooh. I don't know. I think he's had some flops.
Taika's had some misses in the
great
past.
Stuff too, though. Did y'all see the Gay Pirates one? I love that. Oh my gosh, it melted my heart. Yeah, that was like probably the best gay representation I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
It was important for me to see that. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. So I hope it at least happens, whatever he's doing with Star Wars. He's got such a unique style too.
I heard his new movie about the soccer, like one first goal wins, was kind of a flop. Like, I don't know,
Well,
maybe it doesn't
Otter.
take itself so seriously, but
He's made a
I don't know,
lot of
Donald
stuff.
Glover's Star Wars, I'm into.
Mhm.
I can get behind that. I'm kind of over Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni at this
Yes.
point.
Oh my gosh. Yes. As much as I
I
love
never
them,
thought
like,
I'd say
yeah,
that.
they do it well, but oh my God. Again, I know we don't want to just like force diversity into this, but like when everything is being made under the same like vanilla cowboy hat, we're going to get a similar stream of consciousness. Like, let's take some chances. I mean,
Yeah. Dave Filoni is not a good director. That's just the ultimate truth. Like as when it comes to me, I don't believe so.
Live action director. Let's make a distinction here and let's appreciate some of the amazing things he's done in anime. He directed some of the best episodes of Avatar season 1.
That's fair. You know what? I'm
Yeah.
gonna rescind that. He's not a great live action director. Time could maybe help with that, and get him more at bats. But my goodness, yeah, those Ahsoka characters were unbelievably stale, and he wasn't the greatest coach on the sidelines for that team. So, I mean, and it was funny too because who was it? Sabine and Shin Hati. There's a scene, or there's like I don't know, someone filmed them like doing like a cool, and they saw each other, like they pretended they hate each other, and then they gave each other like this really cool high five, and then like because clearly like they're super tight, and then someone in the comments said like, why couldn't she have done that when she saw Ezra? Like, like this was more of a reaction off screen than we got on screen, and so
yeah.
lots of that with Star Wars right now. And I don't know. And ultimately, I want to say this too. When people do force any sort of DEI narrative, it's like, I do think most audiences feel this way because it does feel forced, but it's like, it's just tokenism at that point. You're devaluing the humans that are in those roles. And if people don't believe me, then look up John Boyega being pulled from the Star Wars Force Awakens posters in China. And you see
Dude, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, even in the Rise of Skywalker, it was supposed to be a big deal that there was a lesbian kiss at the end, where like right at the very end, these like two people in the background just like kiss for a little bit, and they were like, we got to remove that from China, we got to remove it from this. So it's like, why are you even spending the minuscule amount of effort that you are for this?
Did you think we wouldn't notice? Star Wars fans are insane.
Yes, exactly.
We notice everything.
Yeah. And well, it's like they're gonna say we're gonna do what's morally right for this audience, and what's morally right for China, we're gonna do that. And it's like, no, they're calling it the panderverse. Like, how can we pander to this and this? And I heard like Hercules is gonna be Michael B. Jordan, and we're like, well, you can. It's historically probably inaccurate, even though it is a fantasy character. Like, let's be clear, but also like, why don't we like, okay, let's actually portray a Greek actor. Do we have many? I don't know of many, but that'd be super cool. Let's get Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's black if that's what you want, but he's from Greece. I would watch him play Hercules. Like, there you go. I'd watch that, but let's get a Greek actor. Like, let's be more authentic instead of things that are forced is all I'm saying. And I think we're going to get better stories for it because, if I have an actor pretend to be Egyptian, and it's kind of like when I remember going to Scotland this year, and I thought of all this, like I met Scottish people and I was like, I've never heard an accent like this. I started thinking through all of the Scottish accents I've ever heard. And it's like Mel Gibson and all of these other American actors playing it. I'm like, oh, I haven't heard a lot of authentic Scottish people speak. And it's always going to be different than whatever someone else is portraying it. So
Yeah.
let's go with that. And if it works for your story, do what you want, but stop forcing political messages because now you're just Tim Tebow Disney. And no one wants Tim Tebow on their team at quarterback.
I think, to bring it back full circle, back to Godzilla -1,
Greatest movie of the year.
it was really great. I highly recommend listeners check it out if you can. But what is really interesting about the Godzilla franchise, and I'm not even pretending that I know anything about the Godzilla franchise. I was at the Alamo Drafthouse, so I know what Alamo Drafthouse told me about it, which was a nice little Wikipedia page,
Yeah.
But I think it's really interesting that every Godzilla story is just like non-canon. It's just all like kind of, we pick back up here. Like, nah, now we're gonna forget about that part. And I kind of wish Star Wars had more of that in them. Like Jake right now is currently reading Heir to the Empire, and he was like, I so bad want to see this on screen, and it'll never happen because it's not canon. But couldn't we just like for one like second pretend like this fantasy world is like also a fantasy within a fantasy? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be cool.
Visions exists. I really
And
want to
it's
see more
successful.
Visions. Yeah, it's incredible. Everyone loved it.
Yeah, do more
first
of that. I would love to see more non-canon Star Wars. And there's obviously plenty of content to draw from.
Man, Godzilla meets Star Wars.
That's later in the season. That's in a couple of episodes.
Is that the Zillow Beast?
Yeah, Zillow. Yeah, it's so clear. Yeah, it's Zillow. Yeah.
Oh man, Godzilla. I thought about that. I was watching something where it said Godzilla -1, that Godzilla versus a Star Destroyer. Who wins?
Have you seen those videos on TikTok that are like 1,000 ostriches versus like one Goku, and they're like
a billion lions versus the sun.
Yeah. Who's gonna win? I love that.
Well, that's what I think with Godzilla versus Star Destroyer. I'm like, unless the Star Destroyer's in space, just raining down havoc and hell.
That heat ray, it's not gonna work. The heat ray is gonna win every time.
If he can get it up into space like that and knows where it's at, but dude, Godzilla shooting an atomic bomb now out of his heat ray, like, I don't know, man, regenerates like that. Star Destroyer better book it. I think the only thing that stands a chance against Godzilla in the Star Wars universe is a Death Star.
Or a faulty jetpack that accidentally falls into a Sarlacc pit.
Yeah. Did you remember in this last movie, if people haven't seen it, it's just so great. His like energy beam builds up from his tail, everything like spikes out, his spikes jet out, and then they lock in and just and he locks and loads and shoots his atomic breath, and it turns into an A-bomb. Like,
I laughed so hard. It was just funny because it was just like, it's like what? But it's fun to go to. It's just fun to go to a movie and just be like, bleh. Like, what is this? You know what I mean?
What is even happening? Japanese people are like, get ready, America.
Yeah.
This is how Godzilla really should be, unlike your legendary films. And I'm like, those movies are dumb too. It's like a bunch of 5-year-olds throwing toys at each other. Like, I've heard Japanese and Korean films right now have like the best storytelling, and we should jump on that bandwagon. So
yeah, most foreign films, westernized film is actually pretty not good.
I just saw Minari. Have y'all seen that with Glenn from The Walking Dead?
I have not seen it, but I know it was nominated
really
a couple years ago.
It's not a Korean film. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you, maybe we should let some Korean and Japanese filmmakers run Godzilla projects, because Godzilla -1 was in production for 10 years. 10 years before they actually put it together. Like, they really honed in on that story and a lot of other things. So,
and it shows because it was really good.
Yeah, it takes time. You got to let stuff marinate. You know what's really cool too? The director was the VFX artist for that, like the head VFX artist and the head writer, because they only had $15 million. Meanwhile, these have hundreds of millions, and it still outperformed them in so many ways. Not a global box office, but anyway, at the same time, you're just like, this guy, since he was the head VFX artist like 10 years ago, he released the first design for Godzilla, and he's like, hey fans, what do you think? And they're like, this sucks. You suck. We hate you. Go die. He's like, oh, okay, cool. And like a couple years later, he's like, hey, what do you think of this? They're like, it's fine. And they're like, all right, cool. A couple years went by. He's like, what do you think of this? Like, well, it's pretty cool, actually. Like, oh, what do you don't like? Like, probably this. He's like, all right, cool. Then the film came out, and they're just like, this is the greatest looking Godzilla ever. He's like, yeah, thanks for feedback over 10 years.
Amazing how that works.
They're like, why can't we have like Star Wars? Be like, hey, fans, what do you think of this?
Because everyone wants instant gratification.
Yeah. Now what do you get? Rise of Skywalker, the only movie that Brian is a poster of.
Quality.
I will admit to it.
Quantity, or like cheap. You got to pick only 2.
Yeah. Star Wars went from a really good McDonald's location to like that franchisee who clearly doesn't live in state, and the people running it there shouldn't be running that McDonald's. Like, don't stop at that one. Not even at like 3 a.m. on I-80. Just don't. You're gonna get sick. That's Star Wars right now. Hopefully that changes, but
once in a while they can give you a great burger, but the consistency is an issue with some McDonald's.
do we think it's gonna get better? Do we believe in this thing?
I believe in Andor. I
Me
believe Mandalorian can pick back up if they focus on what the hell they're talking about. Sorry, language. Yeah.
Should they do a second season of Obi-Wan? Because it's really depresses me how vanilla that first season was. And I just
really liked it.
I just want to like it so much. I want to like that fight scene with Darth Vader. I do like that fight scene. I do like anything with Darth Vader. But the rest of that show, anything not Darth Vader related, is just like, meh.
No, Leia was so cool. I love seeing little Leia. And I love just how much it adds to A New Hope without contradicting it. I don't know. I love a lot about Kenobi. And I really want to debate it more with y'all because I definitely don't want a season 2 because I think it's just a good one-off. Just like send it away. You don't need to just force it because that's what people want. Just tell the good story. If it doesn't land for everyone, fine. It landed for me, and I can just appreciate that.
Off the top of your head, without a hard review, what are you giving that from a 1 to a 10?
From 1 to a 10, off the top of my head, I would give it a solid 8.
See? Exhibit A. Why isn't it a 10? It's not perfect.
That's okay. I mean, yeah, the action is like weird, and yeah, it's definitely got some pacing issues at times.
Yeah,
some goofy.
What is it that you like so much about it? Because there is a lot to like. I give it like a 6.5.
The character study of Obi-Wan. I think it's a great delve into his psychology and into a defeated man who's lost his order, lost his purpose, and he's trying to find a reason to, really exist beyond what he admits to be kind of a fake desire, a little his overprotectiveness of Luke was, the last little shred of purpose he was clinging on to, and he realizes that no, he can be something greater than just, old crazy man Ben, and he becomes Obi-Wan Kenobi again. And I think his performance was incredible. And that seeing little Leia was just like the best decision they could have made, just like actually bringing so much more value into it and connecting the prequels to the originals better than any other piece of Star Wars media has.
The fact that they kept little Leia a secret too, like that didn't leak, was phenomenal, because like when I saw that was going to be part of the story, I just like wanted to cry.
Same.
I didn't have a problem with her in it from the story perspective, and I like the actress fine. There was just things that were clunky to me in that show, that like, oh, she's outrunning people in that forest. Oh, and especially when Obi-Wan's like, all these people who look super fit in the Imperial are like whatever, military. And then there he is in his hat, beard, long hair, and he's got her underneath his ginormous coat, not fooling anyone. I'm like, what is this? Like, what is happening? This is so... And I think for me, the tone shift was also kind of weird. Like, the dialogue was fine. The music was fine. But the big thing for me was like, episode 4 is very hopeful. Episode 3's happy and then really sad. And here we are just kind of just getting through it. Which is fine. But at the end of the day, I don't know. And I don't know, I guess, really what I was expecting there. I mean, again, like I said, the technical aspects and some of those decisions, like the shaky camera and every lightsaber fight being in like the dark, got a little old for me, especially shaky camera in the dark fight scenes. I'm like, I can't see it. So those are some of like the nitty gritty things, but
so mostly just the choreography.
And I would have liked to focus more on Vader than Reva. I think like that story, I think, is a lot more compelling right now. I think the Inquisitors are fine. I don't think we needed that much Inquisitor action from any of them. And this, I think, would have been much more interesting with Vader instead of Inquisitors.
I was hoping they were building towards connecting it to Jedi Survivor because they take place in the same year. There's definitely some overlap in the story, like with the Jedi Path and Cal,
That's
trying
what
to
I was
find.
hoping for too.
Yeah, so
Oh,
I
wow.
think we'll see that in the third game. But I definitely was hoping for more connectedness between the two.
Yeah. I don't know. Hopefully they just do Obi-Wan all over again, right? We're talking about nothing's really canon anymore. Just do Obi-Wan again. But like fix some of these things. And that's fine. It'll be my favorite Star Wars
I think
project.
if we do anyone over again, I'm gonna say Rise of Skywalker. If we're gonna just take on one Star Wars project to redo, that's the one I would
Just
do.
pave over it.
Or better yet, Book of Boba Fett.
There you go.
That-
That
knew
can
you were
be your
gonna say that.
answer.
That's the one. That's the one. We have to agree on this before we wrap. It's been an hour and 10 minutes, and we can go another hour and 10 deciding what's the content we're gonna fix. Brian, what's the one? What's the one Star Wars project you would, if you got one that you could say, we're gonna retcon this and start over? What's the one for you?
It's so hard. I don't know, because like I would say Phantom Menace by default because I think it's like the least impactful, but like I still love that movie. I've really grown to love it. And I do love a lot about the Rise of Skywalker and how it ties in the whole saga. It kind of justifies the sequels in a lot of ways. I really do think it was just crappy editing. I think it was just too rushed. I don't think it's a horrible movie. I think and I'm always going to be livid until they release the deleted scenes. They just know that the fans are going to make a better cut of it, and they're jealous.
Yeah, we always do. We always do. But the reality is we're hating on Star Wars so much tonight because we love it so much and we want it to be better. It's that one kid that like there's so many cool things we love. Like when Anakin and Ahsoka comes out with his lightsaber. And that whole sequence with Anakin and Ahsoka is so cool. And then so you get disappointed when the rest of the show is just kind of fine because there's so much there. So maybe next time. But anyway, I can tell by Amanda's private chat saying, let's try to wrap, that we should probably wrap.
Oh, don't
and
expose.
call it an episode. But that's this week's episode of Duel of the Ranks, everyone. For more information, where do people go? Brian, Amanda?
Check out dueloftheranks.com and make sure to like and subscribe and rank and share and comment and maybe get even a Duel of the Ranks tattoo if you're feeling really dedicated. And just, share the love. Let your other Star Wars friends know that you're a Duel of the Ranker.
Duel of the Ranker. I like it. The Duel of the Ranker.
Oh.
All right, y'all. Until next week. Until we do. Is it past Amanda's bedtime? Amanda, I don't know. You do strike as either person that goes to bed the latest or the earliest of this crew. But we'll save that for next week's episode. We'll see you there.